Ready to go? Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Tonight is Monday, March 4, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the Minnetonka City Council. I will call this meeting to order and ask you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Falk, would you please call roll?
Rameli,
Here.
Coakley,
Here.
Foster Bolton,
Here.
Shack,
Here.
Wilburn,
Here.
Calvert,
Here.
Weirsom.
Here. Next item is approval of the agenda. We do have an addenda. Ms. Dahman.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. This evening, there's one item on the agenda for consideration. Item 14B, 2024 Assessment Report. On page 13 of the assessment report, the commercial net growth section was corrected to reflect the net value growth. This concludes the changes this evening, and with that, Mayor, I turn it back to you for consideration.
Thank you. Council, is there a motion? Councilmember Calvert,
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
and a second.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Rameli. Ms. Falk, please call roll.
Rameli,
Yes.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Weirsom.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is approval of minutes, and we have no minutes tonight. So that takes us to special matters, and we have one special matter tonight, and that is the recognition of the 2024 Minnetonka Academy participants. So thank you all for being here. And the way we're going to do this is I will read this recognition from here. And Ms. Falk, we have some certificates that I believe were handed out to some folks at the meeting, but because of the inclement weather, not everyone could be there. So as you come forward, if you haven't gotten your certificate, Ms. Falk will give that to you. Then we'll gather around and we'll get a picture of everyone for the record, and then that will do it. But I appreciate you all being here. So now I'm going to read my script here, and so I'll probably repeat myself because I said half of what's in it. But we want to recognize the 2024 Minnetonka Academy participants, and thank you for your participation. Not all participants could be with us tonight, but if you are in attendance, please rise as I call your name and come forward, and then we will get things taken care of. So, and then I ask that you hold any applause until the end. So I will read your names, and if I manage to mess up the pronunciation anyway, please correct me because I want to get it right. But thank you so much for being here. So first, James Allen, Philip Barnhill, Gwendolyn Cameron, Brian Chen, Jim Clayton, Marilyn Clayton, Janie Coulong, Molly Daly, Skylar Daly, Mark Ellis, Holly Godfrey, Edwin Hassler, Mark Heiberg, Margaret Householder, Irene Kelly, Thomas McMullen, Pamela Melky Boyce, Kelly Mikulski, Nathan Mikulski, Carolyn Miller, Bria Murphy, Cindy Reich, Terry Rattan, Renee Sheppers, Dwayne Schroeder, Pam Schroeder, Carol Seiler, Marge Tree, Jack Wilcox, and Mary Wright. And just to double check, did I miss anyone?
Becca Muscat.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca Muscat. I missed. I did sneak here. They're right between Bria Murphy and Cindy Reich. So my apologies for that. So, well, first of all, congratulations to all of you for your participation in the Minnetonka Academy. I hope that you found your time to be worthy of the investment. We really appreciate your taking the time. Thank you for attending each session and taking the time to learn more about our city. And then I'll come down and join you for a photo if you can, and then thank you very much. Yeah, should we go in front of the flag? That would probably be good. All right, and thank you all for being here tonight. So next item on the agenda is reports from city manager, reports from city manager and council members. Ms. Dahman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have a few things for you this evening. First, tomorrow is Election Day for the presidential nomination primary. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and we hope many voters are able to get out and vote. Additionally, next Tuesday, March 12th, there is a community solar workshop in the Minnetonka Community Center beginning at 7 p.m. for those interested in learning more about community solar. As a reminder, Friday, March 15th is a State of the City to be held at the Marsh beginning at 11:30 a.m. Also, I'd like to make a plug for open positions currently posted with the City of Minnetonka. We offer a wide range of job opportunities, including full-time, part-time, and in most need are seasonal positions. So we encourage those who may know somebody to share the information and to visit our website at the City of Minnetonka to learn more. Lastly, the next council meeting is a study session to be held on March 18th at 6:30 p.m. So with that, Mayor, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Dahman. Council members, anything that you would like to report? Anything? It's been a quick week, so not too much has happened. And I don't have too much to report other than to say that I will be in St. Paul on Wednesday. I'm going to testify in Senator Kelly Morrison's Transportation Committee to talk about the Highway 7 Commission and the much needed improvements to Highway 7 to get secure funding for that. So I along with several mayors from cities along Highway 7, will be testifying in that committee hearing between 3 and 5 on Wednesday afternoon. So with that, we will move on. The next item is citizens wishing to discuss matters not on the agenda. So this is an open mic opportunity. If you have something that you would like to make the council aware of, please come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us what you want to know. I can tell you that no action will be taken tonight. We will turn whatever you report over to staff and have them investigate and report back to the council. So is there anyone who would like to make any comments to the council tonight? Anyone? All right, seeing no one, we will move on. The next item is bids and purchases, and we have none of those tonight. Item 10 is the consent agenda. items requiring a majority vote, and we don't have any of those tonight. So that brings us to item 11, which is the consent agenda, items requiring 5 votes, or a supermajority. And we only have one item on that tonight, and that is item 11A, and it is conditional use permit with variance for a detached accessory dwelling unit at 13910 Knollway Drive South. So, and if anyone would like more information on that, we can pull it. Otherwise, we can just, after it's been read into the record, and we can just vote on it. Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move approval of consent agenda item 11A.
Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Shack and a second by Councilmember Calvert. Ms. Falk, please call roll.
Romaili,
Yes.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Wearsome,
Yes, motion carries. Item 12 is introduction of ordinances. We have none of those tonight. We have no public hearings tonight, item 13. So that brings us to other business, item 14. And 14A is a preliminary plat for Woodhaven, a 5-lot subdivision at 2424 and 2440 Plymouth Road. And Mr. Gordon, that's your report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the Woodhaven plat, as you mentioned, Mayor. I'll give a little bit of background on the site. There are 2 properties that are included in the plat. They are about 4.5 acres in size. There are 2 homes, one on each parcel. The larger one was built in the 40s, and then the smaller one was subdivided off and then built in the 70s. So there's kind of a long history of ownership here by a single family, actually. I apologize for my frog in my throat tonight. Okay, so just a few things about the site. This includes both of the properties, as you see here on the screen. So the 4.5 acres for both of those. Frontage on Plymouth Road, and then kind of a rectangular, or excuse me, a square size site with a number of features. There are steep slopes, there's a significant number of trees, and then there are also a wetland feature here as well. So a lot of things going on this 4.5 acre site. A little bit of background. Back in 2021 through 22, we had an attempt to do a little different proposal than you're seeing this evening. And this was an attempt to go from an R1 zoning to an R1A. So smaller lot size down to like 15,000 square feet. And then, frontage on a new public street, basically double the number of lots with 10, as shown here. That concept never really materialized into a preliminary plat like we're seeing tonight. Did get a bunch of comment along the way, and then some plans were kind of adapted from this one. That included a similar plan to the one we're reviewing tonight in 23, and this was one the developer, it didn't make it to this level at the Council and Planning Commission, but at a staff level, just having a discussion about it. And this would have required a variance, same number of lots, but the feedback from staff caused some change to that. So seeing a little bit different proposal tonight. All right, so I just want to get into some details about this. Again, this is a R1 zoning. The plat is consistent with all of the dimensional standards of the R1 district. So half-acre lot size, 110 feet of frontage, is minimum of 65 on the bulb on the cul-de-sac. So it meets all those standards. We do have a number of environmental aspects to this as well that are kept in check. So staying away from the steep slopes, the 20 and more specifically the 30%. It's kind of an avoidance area. So the plat respects that. We also have the wetland feature on the north side of the site that's being protected, managed for stormwater rate volume control as well. And then we also have the tree protection ordinance, which I had mentioned there are a significant number of trees. So this plat does a really nice job of kind of respecting the locations of the trees and minimizing to the extent possible for platting the tree loss. So it's really under our significant trees and our high priority trees standards by quite a bit. The significant is only 17% removal, can have up to 50. The high priority is a little closer to the margin. It's at about 33, and 35 is the limit there. So, but again, good job of staying away from the majority of the site. And then lastly, we always look at kind of the stormwater and utility aspects of the project. So this site incorporates a number of storm water features, a lot of rain gardens on each of the lots. They have systems that connect into built systems off-site that will provide kind of the overflow and manage the stormwater that way. And then kind of lastly here with the utilities, kind of a nice improvement for all of the neighborhood here. So there's a water main that would be provided in sanitary sewer from Plymouth Road to provide water and sewer to the 5 lots. We're also able to get a connection to the water in Forest Meadow Lane to the west from this site. So that will provide a loop to the water system, which is always beneficial to everybody for good flow, backflowing if needed in terms of needing to shut down valves for maintenance. Provides good quality too, so you're not at the end of a system. So this will be bored for part of its length. And what I mean is some of the impacts to the ground won't happen because of that boring. So in the edge off of the cul-de-sac here, there will be kind of an open cut installation of that main where the grading will happen for the homes. And then from about this point, it'll be directionally bored out to its connection in Forest Meadow Lane. So that'll reduce impact to trees, disturbance of soils, kind of keep it out of sight from the neighbors' yards. There will be a connection in the street that'll happen at some with this water main, but it'll really avoid the impacts that it would typically see. So that's a benefit as well. Again, so this is the 5-lot plat. It's a conforming plat, no variances. It meets all of our ordinances. This also, just of note, because we've had some conversation about traffic in the neighborhood, this street connection would align with Amy Lane across the street. That's a feeder into kind of that Amy Lane neighborhood there, where there's 2 other cul-de-sacs there. So it's a very much aligned intersection, which is desirable. The county's in support of this type of alignment. We don't have need for turn lanes, left or right on the county road. County did not need those for this particular development. So we think we're in good shape for the future with this street alignment as well. So with that, Mayor and Council, this is the recommendation coming from the Planning Commission. They had a 6-0 vote to recommend your approval of the project. And the conditions that are outlined in the resolution support all of the staff findings and code sections. So it's here for your review tonight. And again, we're recommending approval. Turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Let's see, I think we'll do a few things, but first of all, Council, any questions for Mr. Gordon? Yeah. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, why with the original 10 house, like just a couple of was it just because it would require rezoning, or was there other reasons?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Foster Bolton, there were a few things that were happening at that time. This was a time where we hadn't had development in this neighborhood, and I think it got a lot of the neighbors' attention about what the expectations were going to be for development of this site as an R1 site, to rezone it to R1A. So we had some feedback on the density. Didn't have a real good handle on all the tree impact at that point. Was going to be significant, probably was not going to meet the tree ordinance. So I think a lot of that feedback just caused the change in direction to get to where we are this evening.
And then just out of curiosity too, ballpark, how much would these houses cost? Like,
Mayor and Councilmember Foster Bolton, I think I'll defer to the builder tonight and just let him give you some more detail on the numbers.
All right, we'll give him the opportunity to talk about his project, and he can bring that. No, you're good. Are there any other questions for staff? All right. Oops, go ahead, Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for everybody's kind of reference, what is the level of development that typically requires a traffic study? Because that's something that's come up quite a bit here.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Shack, we had that question come up during the Planning Commission hearing about traffic studies, and typically for, single-family detached housing projects that we see in Minnetonka that are a dozen or so lots, never do we typically require a traffic study. What we would look at, though, are considerations for, like, the county road here, for example, if the county wanted a turn lane. I can think of Island Oaks, where that was 8 or 9 lot development, and we had a right turn lane off of McGinty onto Bantas Point. That was a requirement the county had. They're not requiring it in this one. But traffic studies are usually for commercial projects, multifamily projects with, hundreds of units in them. Single-family projects, though, just don't rise to that threshold where they're triggered.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Thank you. Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. I got a partial answer earlier today because in the tree inventory, there are several trees that are marked as dead and also as saved. And so my question earlier had been, do those particular trees that are marked as dead and also saved enter into the calculation for the percentage to meet our tree ordinance? And the answer was no, but I was just wondering then why are they marked saved? So I just wanted some clarification on that, how things are marked in that tree inventory.
Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Calvert. The trees, there's 2 dead oak trees on Lot 3 and Lot 4 that were noted as saved in the tree preservation spreadsheet. And again, those are trees that don't count as a tree in the inventory, against or for the number of trees that are being taken or preserved. So it's just a tree that would presumably just be taken down or fall down over time, provide habitat during the time that it's up. So it's really so the natural resources staff basically left it up to the developer to take it or leave it up as they choose. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, I just didn't know how, people are going to look at that and maybe make their own calculations. So thank you for that. And then on page 43, as you scroll through the packet, there was a letter from a resident, saying that there was an engineering crew out today marking what they said was 100-year high water level, and then there were enclosed photos of their home, which essentially sits entirely within the floodplain. And so I just wanted a little explanation of a couple of things. One is sort of, has the 100-year floodplain changed since the construction of that home? And, if not, under what conditions was construction of a home approved in a 100-year floodplain? And then I know it's going to come up, but if you could just talk a little bit about, and you did somewhat talk about some of the stormwater management features, but just to reassure people, if this were to pass, what might happen with stormwater?
Yeah, Mayor.
Mr. Gordon.
Councilmember Calvert. So the 100-year flood area in the letter that was referenced in the packet is referencing this wetland on the north side of the site. And what has been designed for the project is that water in kind of this catchment area around the wetland would flow into first this rain garden that then discharges into the wetland, and then the wetland has an overflow on the north side there that goes, north and then through that neighbor's yard. The stormwater has been designed to our new floodplain standards. So in real world, it's a higher standard than what may have ever been anticipated previous to this project or when that neighborhood was approved. But that neighbor does have a flat area that the water finds its way through over time. And I know that the applicant has been out to the site with their crew. They've talked to the neighbors. Our engineering staff has also talked with the applicant's engineer. We don't have concerns about that as a flood risk to the home, which is the primary concern. I think it's been indicated to the homeowner that again, there's not a legal conveyance through the property with a drainage easement. So if they wish to do something to their yard for additional flood protection, they could do swale, they could do a number of things just to redirect the water away from the home if they were concerned about that. But again, we've looked at it in a couple of different ways, and we feel comfortable with the plan that's been designed. So that's that piece of it. The rest of the stormwater system kind of has some catchment areas on the south side of the cul-de-sac, and again, those go through a series of rain gardens. So the ones on the south kind of drain to the west, and then there's a feature over here, kind of similar to the north side of the site, where there's overland drainage into a pipe that's on the neighboring plat and properties there. As we indicated in staff report, we may want to try and connect that. The developer may want to connect that to the city's pipe just to keep the overland drainage from happening and put it into a pipe. So that's either of those are acceptable options for drainage off the site. So that's stormwater in a nutshell. If I missed anything, Mr. Manchester will certainly add to it.
No, I think Mayor and Councilmember Calvert, I think that covers it. The only other thing I would say is, all the existing drainage patterns are maintained, so the water is flowing the same way, and the development does require the rate to be maintained, no more than exists today. So that's why we're comfortable with it.
Counselor, are there other questions? I'm going to ask one that's related to the questions that Councilmember Calvert asked, because I do remember when we looked at that 10 lot plan, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about the one lot that was in the northwest corner, which is the corner of lot 5. And while this project did not make it forward, I do recall when we looked at it as a concept, thinking, well, you're not going to get 10 lots. and lot 5 was going to get a lot of attention, I think, from the council had a project been proposed, but it wasn't, and it went away. And now we've got a project that I think does a much better job. But one of the related questions I have, not maybe specific to the proposal in front of us, but the FEMA rules on the floodplains have changed. And we would not approve a new lot or a new proposal in a floodplain. But given the fact that the rules have changed over time and the hydrology measurements have changed over time, we do have properties in our city that have been built in floodplains, correct? And I believe that's the case, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then, is there, in that circumstance, does the city have any responsibility toward those homes that have ended up in floodplains, or is it just something that you live with, and it's a reality that if they were being proposed now, wouldn't be approved, but they were approved and they're kind of grandfathered in, for lack of better terminology. So tell me if I have that right and kind of what our status is in circumstances like that.
Mayor and council, there were a number of, I might refer to Ms. Heine too for the liability piece, but yeah, there were a number of properties, built over the years that when, at the time they were developed, they certainly met the rules of that time. Recently, council did review the Atlas 14 rainfall data, which has increased. And so we're using the new data, just based on what we know today. So it would change, what happens today, but, previously they were built under the conditions at that time. And I don't know if Ms. Heine has anything to add regarding that. We don't have plans to, change anything. And just because a property is in a floodplain, it doesn't necessarily mean there's water
Right.
in that area. It's, area designated for water if we were to get high amounts of water.
Right. Ms. Heine, I don't know if you have anything to add. I'm sorry, I'm
members
not
of
trying
the
to have a
council.
stump the band question here, but I'm curious about it.
When you're dealing with stormwater, there is never an easy answer. And so
Mm-hmm.
every particular parcel is looked at for the particular facts and circumstances that apply to that. And so I can't give a yes, no, simple answer.
All right, I'll live with that. But but I guess my key point is that things change over time, and we do our very best to ensure that properties are protected. But the rules do change over time, and some of them are beyond our control. It can be federal, it can be state, it can be other jurisdictions that are changing the rules, and so. If hindsight was 20/20, you might do things differently, but we're not in that position. So, all right. With that, probably more discussion on that than we needed, but I would invite the applicant to come forward and talk a little bit about your project. Thank you for proposing it, and come forward, state your name and address, and just share anything with us that you would like to share.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Pat Hiller. I'm one of the partners with Norton Homes. I live in Inver Grove Heights. My address is 10739 Allison Way in Inver Grove Heights. Tonight I'm joined by two of our team members. John Molinaro is the project engineer. He's with Pioneer Engineering. So if there's any stormwater or engineering related questions, I'll defer to John.
Great.
As well. And I've got Mike Halley, who's back here behind John. He's a broker who's going to be handling sales for us on this project. And so all of us are here to help you, to help answer any questions you may have. Norton Homes is a custom home builder. We've been around for almost 20 years. We build 15 to 18 custom homes a year. What interested us in this site is that it's unique, private layout, proximity to the mall, good access to downtown, and the give or take half acre to just under an acre wooded lots. And so from a sales standpoint, there's not much like it in this area. We hope it to be very high demand. And we anticipate homes in the $2 to $3 million price range, probably $2 to $2.5 million, maybe a few get into the higher twos, but that's our anticipation. What we are looking at doing, if the council approves our plat tonight, going into the final plat, and then hopefully getting site construction going late spring, early summer, and then homes to follow after that. That's the general timeline. So we do want to get going right away and do some pre-marketing and see if we can pre-sell some of the homes. But we haven't started marketing anything yet. Don't want to get the cart before the horse here, but that would be our intention if we're approved tonight. So with that, I don't have anything to add to Lauren's summary here, so just I'll be available if you have any questions, or I can answer some right now.
Great.
If
Well, I'll
there
tell
are
you
any
what.
of the council.
I will ask the council if they have any specific questions for you. I don't think we're going to be too hard on you tonight, but council?
I appreciate that.
Any questions? Councilmember O'Malley.
Thank you for the proposal. I just wanted to circle back to Councilmember Calvert's question on the dead trees. I was actually walking in the neighborhood yesterday at the wetlands that are adjacent, and in the middle of our walk, a dead tree came crashing down.
Was that right?
Yes. I mean, it startled us, and as well as, some other people who are walking in the area. So the comment would be, for safety reasons, if nothing else, please consider, if this project goes forward, removing those trees so somebody isn't underneath it when one comes down next time, hopefully.
That's an amazing story. It was rather windy yesterday. So,
Yes.
well, regarding the dead trees, there's some dead trees on the ground that we do intend to clear. To the extent that we get access to some of the dead trees, we'll try to take them out. But getting into the woods where we're saving the trees might prevent us from taking out some of the dead trees, and the whole idea was to leave as much of the site as is as we possibly could, but your comment is well taken. I'm glad it didn't fall on you.
It was in somebody's yard, though.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, thank
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. So, let's see, we have, so we've heard from, we've asked our questions for both the applicant and staff. I'm wondering if there's any neighbors that would like to comment on this proposal. We've had all the public hearings and so forth, but when something comes before us, if there's anybody who would like to make some comments to the council before we evaluate and comment and vote, I want to make that opportunity available. Is there anyone? If you'd like to come forward, please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us what you'd like us to consider. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City officials, Mr. Hiller. My name is Jane Polanski, and I live at 2452 Emerald Trail. And I'm here on behalf of our neighbors in the Emerald Trail neighborhood, which is directly east of the proposed development. I represent 18 homes and over 30 neighbors. Our two main concerns, I hate to be a naysayer and all, first let me just say, we are very much looking forward to this development. We think it's a great use of the land. We're very much in favor of it. We just have a couple of concerns that we wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Traffic and construction. Let me just deal with the construction issue first. I've already spoken with Mr. Hiller, and we're confident that we can work together with him to mitigate the disruption to our neighborhood. I have two neighbors on Amy Lane in particular that are concerned about construction traffic during this process of building. There are a couple of school buses that have stops door to door, one being Blake School, that we have a neighbor that's a grandmother that watches her children after school, and that bus stop is right at her driveway, and we're concerned about overflow construction parking during the early phases of construction. So that's one concern that we have. But we are confident that we can work with the builder and hopefully mitigate the disruption to our neighborhood. The second more pressing concern that we have is traffic. We understand that the access point to this new development is directly across from Amy Lane, with the extension of the new cul-de-sac going into the new neighborhood. And our main concern is safety. I went to the Planning Commission meeting, and the general consensus there was, and as well as iterated tonight, was that a traffic study is not warranted given the low number of homes that are going in, 5 homes. Now these are going to be higher end homes, and so traffic will be a little bit higher given that higher end homes generally require more deliveries and more service people. So it's not just the occupants of the home, but it's also all of the deliveries and the associated traffic with this development. I want to just really emphasize the difficulty of access from our side of the street on the east side of Plymouth Road, coming from Emerald Trail to Amy Lane and then accessing Plymouth Road. It's tricky sight lines and high speeds of cars. It's posted 35, but cars go much faster, as probably everybody knows. Making a left turn in particular out of Amy Lane onto Plymouth Road, the sight lines are extremely difficult. The traffic coming from the north heading southbound on Plymouth Road utilizes a curve as well as a hill that makes it very difficult to see that traffic coming southbound when you're trying to make a left turn out of Amy Lane from the east side. We're very concerned about the cul-de-sac being directly across from where Amy Lane is currently for the future occupants of these homes, as well as all the associated traffic, attempting to make a left turn in particular out of that new development on the west side going northbound that we're really concerned that we're setting up a very dangerous situation for future homeowners. Traffic studies, I understand, take a higher density to take place. However, traffic studies just aren't about volume and number of homes. They're also about speed. They're also about sightlines. And we are asking if the city, in conjunction with the county, in conjunction with the developer, have studied this adequately to try to ensure the safety of those future occupants of those homes coming in and out of that neighborhood in a safe manner. We really are advocating for that to be studied more carefully. And is this the optimal entry point to the neighborhood to ensure as much safety as possible? I have a lot of concerns that it's going to be very dangerous for people to make a left turn out of that development. And I'm wondering if there's any consideration for any other site that might allow for more sight line, particularly with that traffic coming from the north, to allow safer access. I don't know if that has been studied adequately. And so I'm asking the city, in conjunction with the county and the developer, to really give that some careful thought. I know the volume of homes doesn't require a traffic study, but I think we're all in agreement that we don't want there to be a setup for a dangerous situation coming in and out of that neighborhood. And that also goes for the construction traffic occurring during the building phase with heavy equipment and slow lumbering trucks. People really fly coming southbound on Plymouth Road, sometimes 45 to 50 miles an hour. And that sight line coming over that hill and cresting is not going to leave much time at all for people to react on that side. It's difficult enough as a resident on the other side to make a left turn. I'm only envisioning how dangerous potentially that's going to be during the construction phase, as well as for the occupants down the road. So again, I just want to reiterate, we're not opposed to the development. We think it's a wonderful builder. The lots look fantastic. We think it's going to be a great use, saving as many trees as possible. We're just really concerned about the safety. And I just really want to reiterate just how important we think it is to do some further study to make sure we're optimizing the safety for the access point to this new neighborhood. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment? Good evening.
Hi, good morning. Evening. My name is Don Cook. My wife Betty and I live at 12829 Forest Meadow Drive. Our home is the one in the 100-year floodplain. And just to clarify for Councilperson Calvert, I did have a conversation with Sarah Schweigert, the stormwater engineer. And as we're talking, I said, I don't think you'd let me build this house now. And she said, probably not. But she also said, you know, since the house was built in '77, and she said, the rules have changed. But that notwithstanding, we still do get water running into our lot when we get heavy rains from that wetland. And the only other thing I wanted to say was, during this project and the prior one, we've had extensive conversations, in this case with Bria Rains, and also with Sarah Schweigert, the water control engineer. And those people couldn't have been more professional, more thorough, or more accommodating in answering all our questions. I don't like the answers sometimes, but they were very professional, and the city ought to be happy you've got people like that working for you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Cook. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else? All right, well then I will bring it back to the council. Council, thoughts on this proposal? And, Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got lots of thoughts, but I have just a quick question, not associated with traffic. And one of my observations has been on the north section of Plymouth Road, north of Cedar Lake Road, where the speed limit changes. Has there been any talk with the county about just making that a consistent 30 miles an hour from Minnetonka Boulevard to Ridgedale?
Mr. Manchester.
Councilmember Shack, Mayor and Council. You know, we've talked to the county about a number of things. I don't recall specifically talking to them about that over my time here, but we could certainly have the conversation with them. I don't think that's something we couldn't talk to them about. I don't know what they would say, but happy to do that and report back.
Thank you. I think just anecdotally, I mean, I think that speed limit change tends to speed. People are already going 35, but then you see you've got 5 more miles to work with, and you kind of naturally increase your speed. And I wonder if that's something that would help slow that down, particularly in light of all of the bus stops along. I mean, I think the point is very well taken that on my way to work, certainly, you can take a nice 10-minute ride behind the bus while it stops, if you catch the timing just right.
Other comments? Councilmember Wilburn?
I had another traffic-related question. So, I don't even know how to ask this. So what would be the procedure, especially when dealing with a county road, if we wanted to look at maybe putting in signals? How does that work?
Councilmember Wilburn, Council. You know, to put a traffic signal in, generally there's a number of warrants that must be met. You know, I can tell you just from my knowledge, you know, an intersection like this wouldn't meet those warrants just because the cross volumes are too low. You'd have to get to be quite a bit of traffic. Even at a 4-way stop, it requires quite a bit of traffic on just a stop sign situation. So that's generally where you start. It's a few different criteria, but it's mostly based on volume and that type of thing.
Other Councilmember Foster Bolton?
Well, this is more of a comment because I walked through there, and it's a great plan, and I think it's that area is the houses are run down, and it's a great plan, and I like it. But I think that while we're talking about building 5 $2 million homes, I think it would be remiss of us not to remember our mission of making Minnetonka a welcoming place. And it's imperative to revisit the mission to make our city affordable. And while I wouldn't, I totally agree with all of this, but I just think it's a good thing for the city council to remember that that there are challenges faced by many of the fellow residents, and I just don't want to lose sight of, and just keep in mind that there are, our mission is to make Minnetonka a welcoming place that's affordable, and just to revisit that every time we approve of this development, and just to remember our mission to make this welcoming and affordable place. So I just wanted to make that point and formalize that point. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make my comments now. And I think Councilmember Foster Bolton raises a good point. I feel a little conflicted when I see we had a different housing type and a little bit higher density that we couldn't make work because of a lot of the natural resources conditions on the site. But this is easier to approve, right? There's less pressure. There's only 5 lots and all of that, but it does drive us back up into that multi-million-dollar price point. Certainly nothing that was going to be developed here was going to be affordable per se, but we might have had some single-level homes that could have come in for under $1 million if we could have been, if we didn't have some of these constraints. So I do think that's something we have to keep in mind when we're looking at how we can, from a policy perspective, make opportunities for different housing types and different price points, because otherwise we are going to be stuck kind of in that $2 million range, which is lovely. I mean, you know, it's an easy project to approve from that perspective. I am very sensitive to, well, and I want to reiterate also and thank the Cooks for their comments. I've been following along on their email chains to staff, but haven't had to really weigh in because staff has been so good at responding. And so I always appreciate knowing what's going on, and especially when it's easy for me because staff's been so professional in handling questions and concerns. So that's really nice to hear. I think the water management is going to improve, whether it makes people's problems go away. I do think it'll ease some pressure on some of the existing problems with water management, so that's definitely a positive. The last thing I'll say is I know that there are neighbors, immediate neighbors to this project, that are very anxious to see it go forward because of the conditions at the site right now and the conditions of the existing homes. So I've been anxious, and I know some folks in the area have been very anxious to see this go forward. So I'm glad we're here at this point tonight. The traffic, I live on Plymouth Road. My driveway is on Plymouth Road, so I am very sensitive to the traffic and the speed, and particularly, as much as we all love the trail, when you are making your turns onto Plymouth Road, now you really have 4 sight lines that you have to check, and so speed and some of sight lines are really important. I know it is a philosophy that lining up intersections on both sides, the east and west, creates the fewest conflicts, so I'm fairly confident that the county's guidance on that is best practice. But I do think we really have to pay attention to speed and pressures on Plymouth Road. And maybe it's not this project where we have to take a deeper dive, but as we continue to develop, that may be something we need to look at going forward. But I thank everybody for their engagement and many years of engagement, and to the property owner for the patience, and I'm prepared to support this project today.
Thank you, Councilmember Shack. Councilmember O'Mealy?
Yes, I just wanted to, thank you, Councilmember Shack, for your comments, and Councilmember Foster Bolton. I have the same concerns about some of the affordability issues that have been raised. I kind of did a little bit of a dive on the numbers, and basically household income for these houses, as projected, it would be $400,000 to $800,000 per year for households for affordability. And so again, there's no variances required. We don't have any reason not to approve, and it looks to be like a very nice project. Again, I will echo the other sentiments expressed here about going forward, looking at what we can be doing to incentivize or create conditions for housing that is affordable to a greater portion of Minnetonka residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilburn, and then Councilmember Calvert.
Yeah, so sort of echoing what my fellow council members have said, I too am concerned about affordability. The city is going to be taking a look at our zoning later this year, and I think zoning is going to be a hot topic in the legislature this session. So there's going to be a lot of zoning discussions, but right now it is zoned as it is, and we have the rules in place, and as Councilmember Romele stated, there aren't any variances that are being asked for, so there's really not a reason to not approve.
Councilmember Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I was around when the 10-unit development was proposed, and there were a variety of challenges. It wasn't just the tree ordinance, but also, as I recall, kind of extreme grading of the slopes. And so I'm very happy that the natural features are largely being preserved, that it is meeting our tree ordinances. And that is not to say that the grading that's going to occur and the tree loss that's going to happen won't feel really dramatic, but it's more palatable. And you know, I mean, I share everyone's concern about affordability here, but the long and short of it is, I mean, even when we look at high density, new construction, apartments are $1,500 affordable for 2-bedroom apartments. So is that affordable? You know, by some standards it's not. And so, you know, affordability, when we're talking about the difference between $2 million and $1 million homes, I mean, any kind of single family home that we'd put there, or even duplexes, would be well out of the range of what most people would consider affordable homes, in terms of, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80% of AMI, and in some cases even 120% of AMI. As new construction. And so, you know, I think we have to put our thinking caps on. I'm sure that we will be talking to staff about incentivizing affordability, and really taking a look at some of our larger lots. We've had some really interesting proposals come that were close but no cigar, that had more density. One in our one of our very last meetings was kind of compelling, but had some suggestions about taking it down closer to the single family homes, just to give, you know, a better transition from medium density to R1 density. So we get really close sometimes, and but that we can't force developers to develop higher density, you know, when we're talking about what might be anywhere in the realm of affordable, like condos or townhomes or, you know, something like that. You know, that's not what's being proposed. And I'm sure that these will be lovely homes and will, you know, fit into the general neighborhood. I think all of the comments about traffic, I don't live on Plymouth Road, but I live on Baker Road, and I live right by West Junior High. So it's a very high traffic area. I have West Junior High driveway on on the south side of my house, just one door down, and then an intersection of Orchard Road just to the north of me. And so I'm very accustomed to, you know, people zooming in and out, being in a hurry. And so, you know, anything that we can do for traffic calming, you know, in cooperation with the county. I think, you know, I've heard the residents talk about the school buses, and I think that we really have to make sure that we are protecting school children, because even in the best of times when there's not construction traffic, people do go around school buses, and so I think we'll have to be extra vigilant somehow there. But all in all, this meets our ordinances. There's nothing to discuss here. I'm sure there'll be lovely homes. And I just encourage the developer to continue to work with the neighborhood to make sure that everyone is on the same page, that they're informed, that they're understanding what's going to happen, and if they have concerns, that they're addressed to the best of the developer's ability. And so with that, I will be voting in favor tonight.
Any other comments? Councilmember Coakley? All right. I've got a couple of comments, and we're probably going to start with just a question in terms of, you know, traffic safety on Plymouth Road. You know, are there, I guess I'll direct this in the direction of Mr. Manchester. You know, are there, I mean, we know that the sight lines on Plymouth Road are not ideal. It it doesn't have a lot of curves, but it has a lot of up and down, and the sight lines are not great. The request is for a traffic study, but in your opinion, if we said we're going to do a traffic study, would we learn anything that we don't already know?
Mayor Wiersum and council, based on what we've talked to the county about, I don't think that we would learn a lot of new things. The county reviewed this as part of their access request, as part of an access request, they do review this and take it quite seriously. So one of the things they did require is to have the access aligned with Amy Lane. So talking with them, that's why we're comfortable. They have done, a fairly extensive review on it. And I don't think it would reveal much more with 5 lots.
Right.
Certainly if it was a different type of development, I think we would, maybe, as Mr. Gordon mentioned, I think it would be a different situation.
And that's what I suspected the answer would be. I mean, I've been doing this long enough. I've read through plenty of traffic studies, and the addition of 5 homes is inconsequential. But I do think that the residents have made some comments that should give us maybe a little pause in terms of not doing a traffic study, but looking at ways that we can perhaps calm the traffic on Plymouth Road. It's not just the number of houses now, because the legislature put in a tax on deliveries because there's so many deliveries, and plus the state wants the money. That's what you do with taxes. But I think that the ball game has changed in terms of the amount of traffic each home generates. When you start considering Amazon and FedEx and UPS and all of those trucks and vehicles that we see on our highways. So taking another look, to me, makes sense. And then so I start thinking about the traffic calming devices we have, because I anticipate, maybe not in my lifetime, but I expect that Plymouth Road will look much different 20 years from now or 50 years from now. But I think that there are things that we might want to do between now and that time. And I think about maybe the dynamic speed signs and things. I think we have experience with those do work, and they do slow traffic down. I've been doing this long enough that I've listened to Mr. Manchester talk about lines on roads do affect how people drive, even though people don't like to think, well, paint doesn't do anything. Yes, it does. And so, I just like to throw out the challenge. This is not going to affect this project tonight, but I think that the question of what can we do to calm traffic on some of our collector streets that we don't even control. I mean, they're county roads, but I look at Baker Road. I look at Plymouth Road. I'll tell you a personal story. It's a little embarrassing, but I live off of West McGinty Road and Crosby Road. And my wife may be mad at me for telling this story, but one night she was driving home from, I think, Wayzata, and going to take a left on Plymouth Road. And someone had been pulled over by a police officer, and they were parked a little west of McGinty on Crosby Road. And it caught her eye. She just glanced for a moment and then made a left turn onto Crosby Road. Well, the sight lines there are not great. That road curves and dips in the same place. It's a challenging location, and it's not a 90-degree intersection. Well, she turned right in front of a car and totaled her car. The airbags went off. She was not hurt. She walked home. She was very embarrassed that she made this mistake. But those are the types of things that we're talking about on these collector roads. It can happen to anybody. So one, I want to tell people and ask people and implore people, please be diligent when you drive. Look twice, look 3 times, be extra careful. But I also, don't speed. But I also think that there are things that we can do to make our collector roads more safer, because the need is there. There is a recent article talking about the increase in traffic deaths in the country just generally. And the United States is different than other Western countries in that our death rates on our roads are much higher, particularly after dark, than they are in other countries. And I think that has to do with road design, it has to do with traffic calming techniques, and it has to do with enforcement. And I think we need to, we need to take personal responsibility. We all, I mean, have I ever broken the speed limit? I'm going to fess up, I have. You know, we all have to take personal responsibility. But I think there are things that we can do that can help make Plymouth Road and our collector streets more safe. And we'll have to implore the county and implore the state. We're going to have to lobby. But I think this is an important topic. I don't think a traffic study in this neighborhood would tell us anything that would make us need to do anything differently. But I do think that there are things that we could do differently to make these roads safer, and that would recognize the more challenging circumstances that exist out there because of the way our lifestyles have changed. So with that, that's my comment for what it's worth. But I just challenge staff, you know, are there any things that we should be doing and considering and working with the county to get done to perhaps calm traffic on these collector streets? Because I know that there is a fair amount of speeding that takes place. And we really, I think it's an important need for the safety of our residents. So as it comes to this proposal, I support this proposal. I don't think we're going to be getting too many more proposals like this, where we have conforming lots with no variances requested. I mean, to me, I want to congratulate the developer for finding a way with the steep slopes that exist there and with the heavy treed nature of this property to come up with a conforming design. I think that's a significant accomplishment. And so I'm supportive. I'm very happy that we're looking at 5 lots and not 10 or even 8. And I don't think that if we were comparing this 5-lot proposal with an 8-lot proposal, we'd still be talking about affordability. I don't think that approving a project like this does anything to diminish our commitment to affordable housing. I mean, we are committed to affordable housing, and our policies indicate that, and we're going to continue to push for affordable housing. But that doesn't mean you could put, land is just so expensive in Minnetonka that you cannot get affordable housing in every parcel and every proposal. So I think we have to take a balanced approach. And I think a proposal like this facilitates a balanced approach, and it doesn't diminish our commitment to affordable housing. So I too will support it. And does anyone have any last comments they'd like to make? Otherwise, I'll take a motion. Councilmember Calvert.
Just one more comment, and then I will make the motion, and that is there are a lot of oaks, and oaks take a long time to grow. So any oak that you can preserve that's still alive, make your best effort. But I appreciate the tree preservation. With that, I will make the motion on the for the preliminary plat for Woodhaven at 2424 and 2440 Plymouth Road.
Is there a second? Councilmember Foster Bolton.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember Calvert and a second by Councilmember Foster Bolton. Please call roll.
Romaili,
Yes.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Wearsome.
Yes, motion carries. So that takes us to item 14B, which is the 2024 assessment report. And Ms. Putz, I believe that you have that report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here tonight to provide you a summary of our 2024 assessment report. Before I begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize our assessing staff who worked toward the 2024 assessment and preparing this report. Jim Dahl, our commercial appraiser, Amy Weber, Amy McNamara, and Aaron Kastner, residential appraisers, and Lori Goodman, our assessment specialist. The first slide starts with the total estimated market value for Minnetonka in 2024 of $13.59 billion. This is an increase of about $200 million from 2023, about a 1.5% increase overall. This is 11 years of continuous growth, and the 2024 total of $13.59 billion is a new high for the city, eclipsing last year's. Here we'll break down the overall value changes by the most common property types. These overall growth numbers are what we refer to as gross percentage changes, and they include all new construction in the totals. First, single household residential market is up about 1.5%, while Lakeshore increased 3.8%. Condominiums are down 0.3%, while townhouses were up 2%. The apartment market increased about 4.8%, which includes the new construction apartments that you see throughout the city. And commercial properties were up about 0.4%, while the industrial market was up 3%. Here we'll take a look at the number of single household sales in Minnetonka. Sales volume was down significantly over the last year, from 445 sales last year to 348 sales this year. This was a relatively low supply of homes available and listed on the open market, and there was also the high interest rates over the last year that impacted this number of sales. And the information we receive from these sales is what we use and analyze to establish our market values every year. This chart illustrates the inventory of single-family homes by sale price, and referring to the 348 sales on the last slide. Only 2% of sales sold for less than $300,000 in the last sales study. About 28% sold between $300,000 and $450,000. And looking at the sales that took place for this assessment, 31% sold for more than $700,000. This graph shows the 10-year history of the median home value for single household homes, with the 2024 median value increasing to $502,200 from last year of $496,500. This shows us a positive sign that the residential market remains stable over the last year. Here we see a 3-year historical comparison with how our single household assessment compares with the surrounding communities. The residential increase in Minnetonka of 0.8% is right in the middle about of our comparable cities. These numbers do reflect the net growth, so they do not include new construction data. So in other words, the increase shows the movement of existing single household homes. Now we'll shift and take a look at apartments and commercial industrial market. This graph shows the overall or gross historical value changes, including new construction. Commercial properties are shown in blue and apartments are in red. As we see here, the combined commercial industrial properties shows 0.9% growth. The total growth for apartments was 4.8%, which again includes the new construction. Here we can see the separate sectors of the commercial industrial growth of the 0.9% we saw on the previous slide. The office market was down 3.2% overall, with many companies working on a hybrid or work from home model. Less office space is needed than before the pandemic, and many companies have reduced the amount of space they occupy, resulting in an oversupply of available area for lease and sublease. And this is not only for Minnetonka, but throughout the metro. The industrial market continues to increase with moderate growth as rents remain high and vacancies remain low, and the retail market was up 5.05% and continues to be a strong sector of our commercial market. Here we see the net commercial change as compared to our surrounding suburbs. The net change for Minnetonka of negative 0.6% falls slightly below the average of 0 through the surrounding communities. This can vary from year to year as each city is impacted differently depending on how their commercial value is composed. So they could have more office supply, more hotel, more retail, and so on. Another important function of assessing staff is handling the tax court appeals. The most recent statistics available are for the 2022 assessment for taxes payable 2023. And as you see here, we had 67 petitions that year, totaling $1.5 billion in value. In the calendar year 2023, staff closed out 99 cases compared with 68 cases in the previous year. The number of closed cases can really fluctuate year to year depending on the tax court calendar and our proactive approach to working with attorneys prior to the scheduling orders becoming due. All right, now we'll take a look at how the market value correlates with the tax capacity. So looking at the two charts, we see that residential property made up about 71% of the total value of our city. However, their tax burden is only 61%. This is because they have a lower tax capacity rate compared to the commercial industrial properties. Similarly, although the commercial industrial properties only make up 16% of the city's total market value, their tax burden is 26% due to higher tax capacity rates set by state legislature. The tax capacity by property class can change annually based on changes in the growth of different property classes, and it is also affected by property tax law changes. Here we have a review of the appeal process, which you may or may not be familiar with. Once property owners receive their valuation and classification notice, the first step is to contact city staff if they have any questions regarding their new estimated market value or anything else on their value notice. The majority of property owners' concerns can be resolved at this level. However, if the owner is not satisfied with the decision by staff, they do have the option to appeal to the local board of appeal and equalization. In Minnetonka, the local board is made up as the city council, sitting as a local board, and consists of two meetings. The first meeting consists of reading into the minutes all taxpayers who wish to appeal their property value, and the local board also approves any uncontested changes that require board action at this first meeting. The second meeting, or reconvene, is when the local board will make its decisions on those values still being contested. Our local board looks to appointed real estate professionals to advise them in their decision-making process. If the property owner is not satisfied by the local board, they do have the option to appeal to the Hennepin County Board of Appeal and Equalization. However, they must appeal at the local level in order to appeal at the county. And lastly, if the property owner is still not satisfied with the result of the county board, they do reserve the right to appeal in the Minnesota Tax Court through April 30th, the year taxes are due. So the last date to appeal the 2024 value through tax court ends on April 30th, 2025. This calendar highlights some important dates for our 2024 assessment. An article recently appeared in the March Minnetonka Memo to inform residents of the upcoming value notices. Our value notices were sent to the post office today, March 4th, so they should be arriving in mailboxes later this week. Later next week, on Friday, March 15th, the property tax information will be updated on Hennepin County's website. On March 25th, the City Council will appoint advisors to serve on the local Board of Appeal and Equalization. The deadline for applications to appear on the agenda for the local board is Friday, March 29th, and we will hear any appeals received after that on a first-come, first-served basis. The local Board of Appeal and Equalization meets on April 8th and reconvenes on April 22nd. April 30th, 2024 is the final day to file a tax court petition regarding the 2023 valuation. And the Hennepin County Board of Appeal and Equalization meets on June 17th. Here's a quick glance at an example of our valuation notice generated by our staff. This informs a property owner of their estimated market value and property classification of their property as of January 2nd, 2024. This is the value that will be used to generate the property tax bill next year in 2025, and it also informs the property owner of the dates and methods of appeal I previously mentioned. Here's an example of a prior year tax bill. These are also to be mailed in March and come from Hennepin County, and they're based on the 2023 valuation and classification notice sent by us last March. The only appeal in this case would be to the Minnesota Tax Court. And lastly, I want to wrap things up by highlighting a few legislative changes that impact our 2024 assessment. First, we saw an increase to the homestead market value exclusion limits that have remained stagnant for many years. Previously, the exclusion phased out for homes valued over $413,800, and now this limit has increased to $517,200. So many more residential homes will see a homestead market value exclusion on their valuation notices this year. Next, a few changes to tax capacity rates that will affect some Minnetonka properties. First, classification 4D1, the low-income rental classification, has a new tax capacity rate of 0.25%. Previously, the first $100,000 in value per unit had the tax capacity rate of 0.75%, and the value over $100,000 per unit received the 0.25%. So overall, they will see a lower tax rate there. And then 4D2 was established for owner-occupied housing on land owned by municipal or nonprofit community land trusts. The new tax capacity rate is 0.75% for this property type. Previously, these properties were taxed as residential, with the first $500,000 in value having a tax capacity rate of 1%, and value over $500,000 with tax capacity rate at 1.25%. So also seeing a lower tax rate there. And here's the contact information for our assessing staff regarding property valuations or assessment questions. All inquiries will be directed to the appropriate staff member responsible for that particular area or market sector. And thank you for your time. I'll turn it back to you for any questions. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Butts. Council, do you have questions regarding the assessment report? Councilor Calvert.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if you can answer this question, but I've been really curious about, out of all of the housing categories, condominiums lost value. And is it just because it's an aging housing product? Because I know we haven't been able to build condos for a while. So is that the reason?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Calvert, sorry. It is hard to say. We do value condos and townhomes by neighborhood, so we look at all the sales that are happening in those specific complexes. Overall, this year we did see slight decreases. A lot of our housing stock in those areas is older, so that could definitely be a factor into it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one. Or go ahead. Councilor Romali, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to commend the staff for preparing this report. I found that it was accessible and well prepared for lay people to understand. So just kudos to the staff for preparing this. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I do have a question, if I may. Just curious, the assessing staff a couple years ago or a year ago was extremely busy because of the dramatic changes in assessment, and I'm just curious as to how your workload's been this year, given the fact that things have really calmed down. Has the amount of calls, or is that TBD because the reports are coming out? What's the status based on what you know?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What you're referring to, 2 years ago, we had historically high call volume due to the percent increase in the residential market being about 16%, I believe, that year. Last year, we saw a more moderate increase around the 4 to 5% range, and we did see a lot lower call volume due to that. So this year, with our low increase and fairly flat residential market, I would expect not a terrible year for calls. But it will be seen very shortly.
Very good. Well, thank you. Yeah, I know that. We'll all be watching our mailboxes now, looking for those valuation reports. We have to accept this, right? Do we vote, move, and accept it? Is there any last comments or a motion? Councilmember Calvert.
I do have a comment. So first of all, yes, thank you to staff. It was a very easy to understand and also full of information kind of report. And this is just a general comment. It's it's not necessarily to staff, it might be to us here on the dais and to staff, but I feel like with commercial properties, I think we're in a new normal that will not feel normal for a long time, and it's going to continue to change, and not in a way that uses the properties in a commercial manner that we are accustomed to. And I feel like most municipalities need to start thinking. I mentioned to Ms. Dahman earlier today, I almost feel like we need a futurist. I feel like the League of Minnesota Cities, the National League of Cities, this is a national problem. Downtowns, don't have that critical mass of workers that are working in their workplaces anymore. And so, we managed to keep our commercial market relatively flat. It's not taking a deep dive right now, but I do think this is going to require more focus from every community. And so I'm hoping that we can actually start learning more about ideas to even out that tax capacity for our residents, because once commercial loses tax capacity, it does that burden does get passed on to residents. And so I just want to start thinking about that, and I hope we can have some intentional discussions or workshops or learning sessions somewhere at some point, maybe not just here in Minnetonka, but in general.
Anything else? Or a second? Or
Yeah,
go ahead, Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, definitely. I certainly concur with what Councilmember Calvert said, but one thing I just wanted to add as a final thought as I was looking over my notes is just to remind all of us as residents, as you're looking over that tax bill, that estimated market value, of course, we all have every right to ask for a staff review, but I also just wanted to, for those of us who don't have, or those who don't have the time to read the report, that again, commending staff, is the very high accuracy rates that Minnetonka has in terms of its assessment. This isn't just done willy-nilly in case like, oh, we like you, we don't like, no. It's first a kind of a desk review where they use computer programming and kind of very set standards that are, professional ethics that are, and procedures that are very set. And then there are physical inspections ongoing, but every house in Minnetonka is physically inspected once every 5 years, or I believe after any major improvements or things like that. And so there are benchmarks, and then compared to benchmarks and compared to our peer cities, Minnetonka, the accuracy of our assessments is very, very high. So another kudos to staff, and just something to keep in mind when you're looking at your estimated market value and that coming in. Something that I wasn't necessarily aware of, and that I very much appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. And Councilor Shack?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the second.
All right, that sounds good. We've got a motion and a second. I'm going to throw in a little comment too, just because, one, if you have any concerns about your assessment, contact our staff. The information's here, the phone number's here, the email is here. They have one objective, and that is to make your assessment accurate. They're not a profit center. They are here to make sure that we get it right. And if you don't feel it's right, then contact them, and they will be very helpful. And as Councilmember O'Malley said, we have an excellent record of accuracy and excellence in assessing, and I'm proud of that. The other thing is that all homes are physically inspected every 5 years, except if you refuse to allow somebody to come into your home and to inspect it. And that does happen. And that's your legal right. You do not have to allow somebody into your home. But if they don't get a chance to look at it, the likelihood of your assessment being accurate goes down. They'll do the best they can with the information they have, but they're not here to get information on how whether your kitchen's clean or dirty or what you have in your house. They're there to understand the value of your house so they can have their assessment be accurate. So I just want to encourage you to be collaborative and cooperative with our assessing staff. They are top-notch professionals, and they want to get it right. So with that, that's my last word. We've got a motion and a second. Ms. Falk, please call roll.
Remaily,
Yes.
Coakley,
Yes.
Foster Bolton,
Yes.
Shack,
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Wearsome,
Yes, motion carries. Next item is appointments and reappointments. We have none of those tonight. And the final item is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Wilburn?
I move adjournment.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Wilburn and a second by Councilmember Calvert. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. I wouldn't be surprised if someone from the planning commission left it or something like that.